Hello, this is part two of Is Mathematics Natural to Humans? In part one, I came to the conclusion that I believe that it is. I believe that there is what you could call a Platonic realm or a realm of mathematical truth, and that I would say that arithmetic is consistent even if formal systems aren't. Um, I believe that in fact, but even more than whether there's an actual mathematical realm, I believe that humans have the ability to access it. Okay, now whatever that means for anyone's particular scientific paradigm, i.e. Neo-Darwinism, whatever that means for anybody's particular religious paradigm, no, those definitely might be challenged also. Some might argue that if human beings can imagine infinity, then is that sort of impious somehow, according to a lot of people who might be very religious. It might also upset some people's anthropological paradigms that, particularly people who say, okay, the hunter-gatherer period, no mathematics, and then mathematics arose with civilization. Studies of Indian tribes and studies of various nations around the world seem to suggest that that's not the case. Okay. Or that it's complicated. Okay, there are tribes that have, no concept of higher numbers. They don't use it. But that one of those tribes in the Amazon was shown to be capable of understanding complicated geometric concepts. Okay, so it's perhaps simply a matter of just not having discovered it yet or not having found the need. I mean, it's a complicated subject. It's one YouTube video is not going to really do it justice. I now want to explain in part two why I believe that infinity itself is actually an innate concept. I think I maybe just stated that before when I was just a few seconds ago, that I believe that not just mathematics but set theory and infinity are innate concepts. In other words, not only do I believe there's a mathematical realm, but I also believe that it's innate to humans to understand it. And I downloaded off of Wikipedia. Okay. Well, I know we can always question the accuracy of that, but this, I believe, is accurate. Because what I want to show is that the concept of infinity is something that really was global. Certainly by the axial period, the concept of infinity was global and existed in many different cultures. You might argue that cultures before the axial period didn't discuss the infinite so much, and I think that maybe people will home in on a very literalistic understanding of their creation narratives, to say, no, these cultures were essentially finitist. But something that's too literalistic an understanding of a creation narrative doesn't do justice to a culture. I mean, let's say something from ancient times, Mohenjo-Daro or some place like that. Let's say we have some kind of fragment. An overly literalistic understanding of the meaning of that fragment might not do justice to what that culture believed. On the other hand, from the axial period, the philosophies of the axial period, the kind of, I guess you could call it the classical Greek period, and then the late Hellenistic, actually the axial might be more like the Hellenistic Greek period. Okay, I'm not entirely sure when historians how historians label the axial period, but I'm kind of thinking of the time of the Greek philosophers, the time of Buddha in India, and then the time of the Jains and the Upanishads, and however ancient these things might be, the time when the philosophies themselves flowered. Okay, keep it safe here so I don't offend Hindus who believe that their view is more ancient than anything. So not to go there, but just when, let's say, the widespreadness of a philosophy is acknowledged by historians. Okay, I invented a word there. So let's look at the Indian view of infinity from, let's say, the classical period or the axial period. The Isha Upanishad states that, quote, if you remove a part from infinity or add a part to infinity, still what remains is infinity. Now, that's pretty Cantor-esque, if you really think about it. I mean, there's an insight into that. Now, for Indians, particularly for Hindus, their understanding of infinity is going to be highly metaphysical. Okay, which in most classical cultures you can't separate infinity from metaphysics. But okay, and I'm quoting. This is from a passage. That is whole. This is whole. From the whole arises. When the whole is taken from the whole will still remain. Now, at once you can think of this as maybe a kind of Hindu metaphysics, transcendental pantheism, or maybe a kind of view of that all that really exists is the whole, that the part is really illusion. Okay, that would be part and parcel of their belief system. But on the other hand, there's a literal mathematical reality to this. Okay, now let's go to the Jains, which is interesting that the Jains were the first to discard the idea that all infinities were the same or equal. Now that's really Cantor-esque. The thing you need to know about the Jains is I don't think they're as metaphysical in quite the same way as the Hindus. I would say the Jains and the Buddhists both are a little different in the sense that they don't emphasize the concept of God in quite the same way that Hindus do, or that, let's say, the Western religions do. It's a little different. I'm not saying that there's a common view that these Jainism, Buddhism would be atheistic. I don't believe that's correct. In quite the contrary, but their concept was a little less personal, perhaps, at least until you maybe delve into the spiritual experience aspect of it, in which case that's different. And I don't want to oversimplify. You have Mahayana Buddhism, Hinayana Buddhism, and I don't know much about Jainism other than I met a Jain once, and it was a very enjoyable experience. But they were the first to really understand the idea of levels of infinity. And according to, according to one opinion, the highest enumerable number n of the Jains corresponds to the modern concept of Aleph null, i.e. Aleph naught. And also the Jains also defined a whole system of infinite cardinal numbers in which the highest enumerable number n is the smallest. In the Jaina work on theory of sets, two basic types of infinite numbers are distinguished. On both physical and ontological grounds, a distinction was made between, I don't know if I can pronounce this word, so I'll just say it in English, countless, innumerable, on the one hand, and then anada, endless, unlimited, between rigidly bounded and loosely bounded infinities. Now that's really Cantor-esque. Okay, now we're getting into the discrete and the continuum here. Or if that even encapsulates their point of view. Now, what about cultures, let's say, in the New World, the Aztecs, perhaps, or the Native Americans? What people have to understand is that for a lot of ancient cultures, time wasn't linear. And so if time is cyclical and not linear, they're not going to express the infinite in quite the same way that we would with, let's say, the idea of the circle, going around the circle. And then you might say, well, a line will be created to infinity if you just keep going around the circle. Without oversimplifying or claiming to be an expert, my sense is that a lot of cultures would not have that concept of the line going out to infinity. That to them, the circle would be their concept of infinity. That would be the impression that I get. And so again, one would have to understand, even those cultures who think, okay, these people are finitist, I think that you have to understand it in the context of their culture. Not ours, not our linear concepts of infinity. Remember what I said about the tribe of the Amazon? They actually seem to understand, and this was in part 1 of this video, they actually seem to understand nonlinear concepts, i.e. Euclidean geometry or projective geometry, let's say on the surface of a sphere, better in a lot of ways than many Westerners. So the bottom line is, I think of a concept as global. If a concept is found in cultures throughout the world, and I just focused on India for the sake of an example, because we know a lot about India, I think that we have to look into the strong probability that that's innate to humans. And then again, if that challenges somebody's biological paradigm or somebody's finitist paradigm, Neo-Darwinism, it challenges that, it challenges that. If it challenges somebody's religious paradigm, let's say an ultra-dualism, where we're finite beings and that's all there is to us, and it's blasphemy to think otherwise, well, that's a complicated question there, because if you really get into the mysticism of either the East or the West, it's not that simple. So, is mathematics natural to humans? Yes. But, you know, then again, I think the experience is a deeper reality than the math. Thank you.